let's talk about some college football scheduling. So this is a topic that I got the idea from listening to Game Day. Game Day was talking about this and talking about, how week 1 was kind of set up. You had, these top 3, ranked matchups we had going on. We had a lot of other good games going on. We had this ranked versus ranked matchup for week 0. And the whole conversation is, should NCAA look at trying to revamp how scheduling is done, right? There's multiple layers to this, right? Of obviously we want stronger competition games as fans, right? That's okay. We all want that. But then there's also where there's that long complaint of, SEC always likes to schedule these cupcakes at the end of the year, this and that, whatever. And then it's just like, oh, well, they're scheduling. I mean, look at week 2. Week 2 of this week is abysmal. Like there's hardly any matchups this week that are super exciting in college football. But then there's also the other layer to this conversation. It's like, well, these games are important. They're important for the group of 5 schools from a financial standpoint. They're important for the FCS schools from a financial standpoint. So my question is, should their scheduling be revamped in some way where maybe you do like less conference games and kind of balance out where it's like you have X amount of conference games plus like maybe one in-state game if possible, because that helps bring revenue for the state. Maybe do, a required one FCS matchup, or maybe, how should college football scheduling work? Stay the same? Is it perfect as is? It's nature of the beast. It is what it is. Or should there be actual changes? Ricky, let's start with you.
So here's the biggest issue that people are not really thinking about. So the usual primary criteria that you usually go by is you played 8 conference games and 4 non-conference games. That's been the usual criteria. The biggest issue that we have now is that you have the Power 4 who keep stacking up their conferences, who keep on
Facts.
bringing in more and more teams. So now you're getting to a point where now the SEC is going to 9 games next season for conference play, which means you have 3 non-conference games instead. That's tough in any conference. I don't care
Facts.
how tough your conference is, how weak your conference is, whatever the case may be. That just in general, non-conference games is an abysmal, and it's ridiculous that you have to play that many conference games. Because here's the thing with non-conference games. Now, this is what I will say. This is what I will say about scheduling. Conference play needs to start about week 4, week 5, because you're going to have a bye in there sometime anyway. You play non-conference to get ready for conference play. And every now and then you do get one of those ranked versus ranked matches, whatever the case may be. I don't care who you play. I don't care who you schedule. As long as it's an NCAA team playing another NCAA team, I could care less who they play. But it's the simple fact is that how are you going to be able to enforce such a thing when you have 130 FBS teams? They all have to play most of them are going to have to play 8 or 9 conference games starting next year. And a lot of these big conferences, their conference schedule is going to be strong enough to have a strong strength of schedule, whatever the case may be. So the problem is not the NCAA, it's the conferences, because every conference has different rules on when they start conference play. Because some of them start conference play week 1, as we've seen some schools that have played conference games already. That's absurd to me. And then they're playing non-conference games. That doesn't make any sense. So if they're going to do some kind of structure, they need to structure it to where you play non-conference first, then you play your conference games. That's how it's. That's the most simple criteria that you can come up with.
Yeah, I mean, and that is a lot of good points, because it's one of those questions of, Jacob, I'm going to ask you, is this a situation of, does the NCAA need to step in and set this criteria? Because it is the conferences. The conferences are getting bloated, whatever, and it's causing these like non-conference games next year. Is this a thing where, NCAA needs to step in and set certain criteria for your 12 games a year, or 13 if you got a week 0, on how this is going to be approached?
No, I don't think the NCAA needs to step in. I think honestly, and I'm not. This isn't coming from a biased standpoint at all. The Big Ten already has it down pat. The Big Ten has had 9 conference games for a long time. The first 3 games are always non-conference games. If anything is going to be changed, those 3 non-conference games, I think that should be the criteria, first of all. 9 conference games, 3 non-conference games, all 3 non-conference games start out in the beginning. The 3 non-conference games should be as followed. Doesn't have to be in this order, but it has to be these 3 specific things. 1, you play an FCS team. 2, you play out-of-conference FBS team that's in the Power 4. And 3, you play a group of 5 team.
Facts. Yes.
That's going.
You hit all 3 of those, that's it.
But in some
That's how
ways,
you fix it.
that's tough because not every conference is packed up like some of these other conferences are. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, one thing that you could do, and Jacob, and then this is kind of what they do in basketball. You could say, okay, you get the Power Four groups together and say, okay, the SEC is going to play one Big Ten team, and they're going to do it in this week. The SEC is going to play an ACC school in this 1 week, or you swap it up basically to where everybody's playing like one Power Four, Power Five, whatever you want to call it, and it has to be the same week. If you did it that way, I could see it doing that way. Because if you look at basketball, in basketball they have what's called the SEC Big 12 Challenge. They've done the SEC versus the ACC, and they've done the Big Ten. I mean, they've had all kinds of challenges over the years. They do the same thing for basketball. You could do the same thing for football. But like you said, it has to be the same criteria. Because I understand you were mentioned the Big Ten. They've had 9 conference games forever. Fine, that's great. But now they have everybody, all these Power Four, these group of 4, the Power Four, whatever. Now they have enough teams where you could do 9 conference games. Where before, not necessarily as much. So I'm all for whatever, but there just needs to be a straight criteria. It needs to be a lot more simple than this crap that we're getting. That's for sure.
And Tyler, how would you simplify things, or what would you do to take this approach and try to make it simplified?
Basically what Jacob said, like, see, the Big Ten basically keeps the MAC running. Like, that's how I view it. Like, does the SEC keep the Sun Belt?
Good point.
Like,
and the SWAC.
Well, the SWAC,
Yeah, SEC does a lot with the SWAC, don't they?
Yeah, 90-0 every game. It is what it is.
Hang on. Texas Tech played UAPB the other day, and you were sconing them. You leave my UAPB Golden Lines alone, Tyler.
Well, it's not my fault. They're terrible. Okay.
That's
That's why Arkansas played them before anybody else, because they knew they was going to dominate them.
Exactly. It's called a tune-up game, Tyler. Everybody needs them.
Well, if everybody needs them, then what's up with these ranked versus ranked week 1 games?
They're called marquee matchup. They're called marquee matchups.
It's called a waste of time and overreaction for everybody. Okay, Texas is not going to be that bad for losing to Ohio State. Arch ain't going to be that bad for losing to Ohio State.
Right.
But because it happened week 1, everybody's going to overreact, like Alabama and Florida State. Everybody's going to overreact. Dude, just play a scrub week 1. Play still a scrub, but a little bit better week 2. And then that's when you start getting the competition week 3. That's the simplest thing I think of. You start paying these 2 schools week 1 or 2, give them a couple $1 million because you got money, unlike Arkansas, and then you start playing the big schools, and then you start losing some more because you're in conference now.
Yeah,
at least that's what Arkansas does.
Right. No, with the approach to conference games and the overall scheduling, this is one that I was thinking about. Is I think the 9 conference games can make a lot of sense, right? Especially when you are in a conference like the Big Ten and the SEC, where you have all these very strong teams throughout the conference. That makes sense. But I also see the benefit of playing out of conference games. Because one of the arguments that was being made on game day was when it comes to time for college football playoff rankings, stuff like that, teams should be awarded more for a loss versus a good ranked team than a win versus a McNeese State, for an example, because that was the example that was given. And I completely agree. I think everyone here would agree. Who gives a shit if Ohio State beats Grambling this weekend? Not a single person on this planet gives a damn.
Grambling does because they get the money.
Well, I know they give, but I'm talking outside of the Grambling community.
They get new jerseys, man.
I'm talking from the standpoint of the rankings and stuff, no one gives a shit, right? It's like people give a shit when they play these teams, right? So it's like, the criteria that Ricky, you were talking about, I think the simplest solution, honestly, is take a page out of the NFL's book. I think that's the simplest solution. Of every year, you have your 6 division games, and every year a team will rotate between 2 divisions across the NFL that they will play the entire division of those 2 divisions, AFC and NFC, and then you have a couple of flex games thrown in there to finish off your schedule. take the same sort of criteria or approach, mold it where it can work for college football, of where this year you're going to see Big 10 versus ACC, or this year you're going to see Big 12 and ACC, or this year you're going to see SEC Big 10 games for your out of conference games. Do that, and you're promoting healthier competition, which is going to help promote healthier viewership, which that's what everyone cares about, is the money. Healthier viewership for these conferences, a healthier attendance for these conferences because of these marquee matchups. Don't get me wrong, the viewership's fine now, the attendance is fine now, but like if you have these marquee matchups with your out of conference games going through this criteria of like, okay, this year we got Big 10 SEC, with this year we have Big 12 ACC or the ACC SEC whatever, like, then you are promoting more viewership, because that's what everyone cares about, is the dollars. I also think there is a benefit as well for your non-conference games to set a criteria of like, okay, well, you have to play an FCS school because, hey, they need the money too, right? It's good for them. Hey, you need to play a group of 5 school. A group of 5 school needs to play an FCS school, just like Power 4 needs to play a group of 5. I even think in states where it's where it's possible, because obviously there are very select states across the country where it's not, your out-of-conference game should be with an in-conference team to further help promote in-state revenue as well. Like, there are multiple levels of this that I think could be taken when it comes to looking at how your non-conference games schedule. And again, when you have someone like the Big 10 and the SEC, 9 games can make sense. But I also think there's a legitimate argument to slap that shit down to 6. 6 conference, 6 out of conference, and do this criteria of, this year Big Ten's playing this conference, this year this team's playing this conference, and do a swapping criteria. I think there's arguments for both, but will it ever happen? Probably not, because again, Big Ten and SEC are stacked, but there's arguments for both.
So here's the issue with what you said, though. 6 conference games?
Yep, I stand by it.
I don't think so.
Hey, that's why it's a terrible football show, baby.
Because you're looking at that would be tough.
It would be tough, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but it's improbable.
The biggest gripe with 6 games would be the fact that you would not play like one team for 2 years in a row or 3 years in a row at that point.
Correct.
With how big these conferences are.
Correct. You would have to have certain protected games, obviously, and then just go through a rotation. And there's always the thing is, though, you say that's the biggest gripe. Jacob, there's gripes right now. There's always going to be a gripe. There is no perfect method, right? There's not a perfect method.
The problem with college football is it lacks a preseason. Like the NFL has a preseason.
Well, you got week 0, of course.
College football had a preseason, you could get these games out of the way with the FCS teams in the preseason.
Well, that's basically what they are now.
It feels like it, right?
I mean, basically, yeah. But like, if college football had a designated preseason, I know the NFL is trying to get away with the preseason or away from the preseason or whatnot. But I think if college football had maybe like 1 or 2 preseason games, we could do that. We could get away with having the FCS games then and not have to worry about it in the regular season.
And so basically, because I kind of get what Jacob's trying to get at now, because right now, everything counts whether you're getting into a playoff or you're missing a playoff.
Facts.
Everything's counting whether you get into a bowl game or you're not going to get into a bowl game. Now, I could discuss how my basketball schedule is going to be for junior high this year, and it's terrible. But we won't get into that because I don't want to get in trouble. We'll discuss that off the air. But anyways, it just doesn't make sense the way that we're doing it. So, back to Jacob's point. You could get a designated preseason for maybe the first 2 weeks. But that's tough to do too. I don't know. Like I said, there's no perfect criteria.
Yeah, there's not.
There's really not a perfect criteria. But either way, something's got to be changed. Now, the reason why the NFL can do what they can do is because they are in a shorter. There are so many less teams for the NFL. You have this broad amount. You're talking between the FCS and the FBS, you're talking nearly 250 to, if not a little bit more than that, of different schools who have football. Not to mention, there's some that don't even have football. They have just basketball. They don't have football.
Shout out to the Zags.
And between the two of them, you have over 300 plus Division I schools in this country. And so in some of them FCS teams, because they can't schedule anybody else, they got to go down and schedule Division II teams. And they get beat by these Division II teams, which is awesome.
Yeah,
So anyway,
true.
but like I said, different criteria, different talk for different day.
Yeah, no, there is no perfect method, right? Like there's no perfect method to the madness. But we as fans, we all want the same thing. We want to see schools make more money, and we want to see better marquee matchups. So what's going to be the perfect blend to help us get there? I don't know, man. That's why it's a terrible football show. We sure as shit don't know.